Well, hello, this is Bob Odell with RootSource. Let's continue now with our interview of Yehuda Glick. What, over the last 2.5 years, what has been personally the best thing about this job, and what has been the worst thing about this job?
First of all, I want to point out, in the Knesset there are 120 members of Knesset. Thousands of people around the world, around the country, want to be members of Knesset. It's you have to remember that you can serve God not only by politics. You can serve God by helping an old lady climb stairs, going into an elevator, bringing her a smile. You can help. You can, and we're all changing the world, not by being politicians. I look at the world 100 years ago. Do you remember that not one woman in the world was able to vote in any country in the world? Look, we have promoted the world. We have women who are leading the world. 30 years ago, nobody knew what the word accessibility was. Disabled people are today part of society. In my eyes, that's a religious event. That's part of the redemption of the world. That is the return to the Garden of Eden, where we're all connected, and all of humanity is connected to God. So every person, whether you're a doctor, or you're a stewardess on an airplane, or work washing dishes in a hotel, you can look at what you're doing and complain and blame, or you can do it. You say, "Wow, what a privilege it is to be able to serve, to be able to do." And I'm a servant, just like any other servant. And you could, in anything you do, we as Jews, the first word a Jew says when he wakes up, before he goes and washes his hands, before he says "I," he says "thank." In Hebrew it says "modeh ani." Modeh is I express gratitude, and you don't say "I thank," you say "thank I." And the first word a Jew says, that's why we're called Jews. The word Yehudi comes from the word Todah. That it says in the portion of Torah we just read, Leah calls her son Yehuda Hapam Odeh. Now this time I will pay gratitude. I will thank. The idea of waking up in the morning and say thank you, but then there's two more words at the end of that sentence. It's Rabbah Emunatecha. God has confidence in us, because when He created the world, the creation of the world begins with two words. In the beginning, God created. It concludes with two words. God created, but then there's one more word. The last word in the creation says la'asot. God created the world for us to do. It's not that we sit around and wait for Him to do things. The whole new issue is that God created the world, and now it's our mission to be His representatives. I always say the miracles that we see in our generation are always initiated by human beings. And all the changes we see in environmental issues, in relationship to creatures, in relationship to disabled, in relationship to women, in relation to the fact that 100 years ago there was still slavery in this world, and today there's no more slavery. All of these issues are godly issues, and everybody can find a place in that wonderful concert, in the beautiful puzzle that we're all pieces of.
I think your answer to my question regarding the negative aspects is that you push them aside and focus on that which you have to do. That's what I hear from your answer.
I have a problem. I buy my glasses at the optometrist. So if I would buy my glasses at the pessametrist, maybe I would be able to see pessimistic. But I can only see optimism. I can only see optimism. And when you believe in God, you understand that God didn't create anything. That sometimes we don't always understand everything that God does, and definitely we've had moments of sorrow. I remember the moment when I was told that my friend Ari Fold was killed, or my friend Yaakov Don was killed. I remember terror attacks. I remember very painful issues that I've gone through. And at the same time, I know where we began. You know, in all of the wars and terror attacks together since the establishment of the State of Israel, we had 23,000 victims, and that's a very big number, and every single one of them is a great soul. But that's half the number of people killed daily in Auschwitz. So I know the alternative. I know where we are, and I know to express thanks. And even in the first year of the establishment of the State of Israel, we had 6,000 people who were killed when there was a population of 600,000. 1% of the population, which means, God forbid, if in 1 year we would have 70,000 casualties. These are numbers that we cannot think of. Thank God. Every single terror attack is painful. every single day that we see what's happening, and that we're losing people in Gaza who are expressing hate and terror are feeling pride as if they're overcoming us. There's no chance they're not overcoming us. But when we lose Jewish pride, it makes me sad. But at the same time, when I see more and more Jews are coming to Israel. I meet Jews at the airport making aliyah, who people not running away from anti-Semitism, but people who are out of choice choose to move to Israel. When I see people coming from all over the world, when I meet people from Malaysia or Indonesia, or when I see the Prime Minister of Israel being accepted in Oman, or opening new diplomatic relations with Chad, all of these things show me that we're in great times. We're in great times. We really are in great times. And I have a privilege of being here at a special intersection where I can change things. But I think that we're all living in a wonderful generation. We're all living. I just met a group of 18-year-olds. I told them, each one of you has a grandparent or a grandfather or great-grandfather who's like 80 years old. Go home and give him a big hug. Because your children are never going to meet somebody who lived at a time when there was no Israel. Wow. And you are living in a time where you can still meet people who knew what it means that we didn't have an Israel. Go home and hear their story, and make sure you'll be able to, because your children are never going to meet anybody who lived in a time where there was no Israel.
You know, at Root Source, we try to tell stories of Jews that are interested in reaching out in some way to the Christian world, and Christians who are interested in reaching out to the Jewish world and to Israel. And we're even going to tell a story. Tomorrow, I visit a woman who was the daughter of the mayor of Tel Aviv in 1948. And she's going to tell her story of what it's like to be here.
Those stories.
To preserve
those stories. I got to tell you a funny story, okay? I was teaching a group of students, high school students. I told them, when we grew up, we didn't have Waze. We didn't have GPS. We had to, we didn't. Today, without the GPS, without the Waze, you go crazy. So we used to go. I told them, we used to go like this. Excuse me, where's Avenue or where's Bialik Street? So one of the kids raised his hand. He said, "What is this?" You don't open windows anymore. Things are changing so fast. You didn't even know that's how you open a window anymore. So look, we get used to things very fast. And if God forbid we don't have the Waze, doesn't work, we go crazy. How can you live without it? Many things we're used to, microwaves, and we're used to dishwashers. People that used to not live with them. And we have to thankful for all those miracles.
The cell phone network was down for 2 hours yesterday. It was It led the news stories because everybody was saying, "How can we have no cell phone for 2 hours?"
Last week they had an interview with a politician here in the Knesset. Said, "What do you say if I take your cell phone for a week?" He said, "Can I change that for giving you my arm?"
I have a question for you. The reason I'm able to ask this question is because of what you said earlier. You talked about the importance of interacting with any person you meet on the elevator, the person that you no matter who you run into, you have an opportunity to step into the story of God with that person. Because you're willing to say that, I can also ask you the other end of the question. People, I think, would like to know, is in the last 2.5 years, who have you met now in the last 2.5 years that you would probably haven't had the opportunity to before? Maybe in the political world, maybe in the religious world. Are there any particular highlights?
Every single day I meet people here in the Knesset who totally disagree with many things I believe in. And it makes me happy to meet with them because very often we cooperate together in many issues.
Yeah.
So I mean, every single day I met Rabbi Mark Schneier, who was a great leader of dialogue between the Muslim world and the Christian world, and he was the one who made the relationship with Dubai and Qatar but I bump into many people, and I bump into, when I told you I met a group of when I meet groups of from the Muslim world who really are willing to speak out for the understanding of dialogue. We look today, we always say, the Christians are our friends, the Muslims are not. I want to remind you that throughout the history, the Christians were many years our big enemies. But today, part of the return of the people of Israel back home is to reunite especially with our two big brothers, Ishmael and Esav. And in Jewish philosophy, Ishmael represents the Muslim world, and Esav represents the Christian world. And we want to reunite with our family. Yes, God chooses Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and he tells them to connect. But he also says, we also see at the end of the story, Jacob and Esav reunite. And I think that's a very strong point, that the time has come that after so many years of hate with the family of Ishmael and with the family of Esav, we have to reunite the family.
Yes.
And we're all family. We're all brothers. They're even our big brothers. But God chose, but he didn't chose us to step on others. He chose us to reunite with others. And that's our most important mission. But there was one point that I had to ask. I didn't answer you before, and I must answer you.
Okay.
Because I did go through some very difficult moments in the past 2.5 years.
Well, that's it for this segment of our interview with Yehuda Glick. So come back in our next segment. Until then, shalom.